How's everybody doing? All right, good to be here. Glad to be here for this historic moment. So I'm going to talk about why planning is overrated. And I've been getting some weird looks from that topic, but I have a good reason behind it. A few years ago, actually, I take that back. Almost 2 decades ago, I was looking at 3 to 5 years in prison in a chance situation that went terribly, terribly wrong. Now, I promise I am not a thug. But up until that point, my responsible self was a non-smoking, non-drinking, no drugs doing, community-devoted graduate of the University of Delaware. And I also went to Del State, Conwell Hall, just so you know. All right. But I worked at a major bank, making what I thought at the time was major bank. And as you look on the screen, you can see how happy I was working at that bank. But the other side of me, the dreamy side of me, was a struggling journalist, an on-air personality, seeking to carve out a significant space in hip-hop culture. So my days at the bank, I secretly planned. They didn't even know about it, but I was planning. I was planning to move from my safe space in Delaware to New York City, the epicenter of my daydreamy world. I also was aspiring to start my own magazine because I was finding some difficulty getting into the circle at that time. It was extremely hard to write for those magazines in the 1990s. So I planned, and I planned some more. Matter of fact, I sat my mother down. I looked deep within her beautiful, beautiful brown eyes. And I said, Mom, my mom's right there, by the way. I said, Mom, I didn't ask. I told her, this is the plan. Nothing's going to stop the plan. Nobody can defer the plan, and the plan shall be executed. And guess what? 3 years later, I was still sitting at a desk at a bank in Newark, Delaware, planning. Now, all of that changed one fateful night. Now, I'm not proud of this, but somebody got hurt while me and my frat brothers were out. My frat brothers and I, my mom's a teacher, while we were out. And again, I want to restate that I'm not proud of this, but I realized very quickly that everything that I had plotted and planned up until that point was now out the window. I was charged with a crime and could have done what I consider a significant amount of time in prison. When the dust settled, I paid a lot of fees, lawyer fees, and was in and out of court. And at that point, everything had changed. So, before I continue with my story, I'd like to ask everybody in here, who's a good planner? Who considers, come on, show of hands, who's a good planner? Okay. Who's a poor planner? Okay. Who likes to let someone else do the planning? Yeah. All right. Well, I love a good planner. I adore them, in fact, especially on vacations and dates. Just keeping it real. But one of my childhood heroes, Hannibal from the A-Team, back in the 80s, he used to say the phrase, exactly, I love it when a plan comes together. And growing up, that phrase meant everything to me. Why? Because Hannibal led a group of fictitious mercenaries named the A-Team to victory every television hour in the 1980s. And they didn't even like each other. I mean, you had Face Man, Mr. T, B.A. Baracus, sorry, and I never quite fully understood it, but they all followed the plan. and it came together. So now what is planning? Planning is the process of thinking about and organizing the activities required to achieve a desired goal. Now that's the Wikipedia definition, so if you go looking for it, it might change, but for the purpose of this talk, it fits. So let's go a little further. Planning gets you and others on the same page. If you're going in the wrong direction, planning gets you on the right path. It also establishes priorities. No priorities? Plan. It also communicates a message to you and others. And last but not least, it offers proper strategy in life and career. Now, when we go through life as kids, we grow up, we say we're going to be this or we're going to be that. We're going to go to school for this many years, make this amount of money, maybe get married, have 2.5 kids, maybe get a nice big old house and put a huge white picket fence around it. But the problem is life doesn't always work like that. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we drop out of school. Our kids may come early. We may get fired. Sometimes the housing association won't even allow you to build a white picket fence around your own house, right? So one of my heroes, boxing heroes at least, Mike Tyson famously stated, does anybody know? Exactly. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Even Iron Mike had a plan until he got punched in the mouth by Buster Douglas, a D-list fighter who gave Iron Mike his very first loss. Completely not in the plan. I was heartbroken, I'll be honest. Mike's one of my favorites. Fun fact, I got divorced, not in the plan, and I sat in the same seat in the same courtroom as Iron Mike Tyson when he got divorced from Robin Givens. When the judge told me that, everything was just a little bit better. True story. Now, as I look back on my life, I realized a lot of what I was doing was over-planning. And over-planning has even deeper implications than regular planning. Over-planning reduces your ability to adapt, and adapt quickly. It also is predicated on perfection. I'm a perfectionist, and it's a torturous demeanor sometimes. It really is. Over-planning is also a form of social anxiety reserved for control freaks. And yeah, I might be a little bit of a control freak too. Now, even going a step beyond that, there's a disorder associated with over-planning, and that's called obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And people who suffer from this disorder are in a perpetual state of planning. They are always planning, always looking for what's to come, and very rarely do they live in the here and the now. In fact, some say that they live in the future. Now, I'm not sure how that occurs, but I'm interested. Now, one of my other pop culture heroes, Apollo Creed, was training Rocky after a devastating loss to Clubber Lang, a.k.a. Mr. T, a.k.a. B.A. Baracus from the A-Team. And when Rocky wanted to give up and train for tomorrow, Apollo told him, there is no tomorrow. He screamed it, there is no tomorrow. And quite frankly, that has always resonated with me as well. Now, as my world it completely exploded in Delaware, and yes, I'm being a little dramatic, but it definitely felt like my world exploded when I had to take flight, and I did. But things quickly started to happen for me in chaos. First things, after all that drama, I got a job almost immediately after all of that. I met an individual, shout out to Carew Daniels, who gave me an opportunity immediately. Now, the job was an internship, and I was a little old for internships, but I took it. And then that job led to me getting laid off before the end of the year. But you know what? I realized that I was on my way. So I got another job behind a register, but I was in a highly trafficked area of New York City by this time. I had moved to Brooklyn, and then I got another job, and then another job. And then I started to write for the very magazines that I wanted to compete with and that I aspired to compete with. And then AllHipHop.com, my company, was moving, and we started to meet people, and we started to influence the culture, and we started to change the face of communication and information translation. And then I saw that even though these were baby steps and I didn't have a whole lot of money, I was actually moving forward. And I realized that my greatest failure propelled me to what I could not plan for, and that was success. And speaking of AllHipHop.com, shout out to my business partner, Grouchy Greg Watkins, right here. Honestly, we didn't plan. He had a site, I had a site, and we put the two sites together on one day. We didn't think about it, we just did it. And almost 20 years later, we're continuing to influence culture and dictate the way our industry communicates. And we're very proud of that. We ignored a lot of what we were taught. Fail to plan, plan to fail. Didn't make sense to me. Other quotes, if you don't know exactly where you're going, how will you know when you get there? And the other one, the most confounding one, is always, always have a plan. But guess what? We were listening to hip hop music, and hip hop was saying something completely different. So while I was at the bank, I was putting inspirational quotes up to make them happy. And at night, I was listening to the Geto Boys. I'm living for today, but if tomorrow comes, cool. But to me, that meant I'm ready now, and I'm ready for what's to come. And I was also listening to other counterculture movements. The Smashing Pumpkins said one of the most profound statements ever: believe in the resolute urgency of now. And Jay-Z, my favorite mogul, said, put this thing in motion, ain't no rewinding me back, let's go. Now, when we spring into action, things happen. Astrocytes provide energy to our neurons. I don't know what an astrocyte is. I do know I have a lot of them. Adrenaline rushes through our bodies. We spring into action. We feel alert. We feel alive. We feel focused. Now, one gentleman by the name of Oliver Burkeman, he doesn't believe in planning at all. I've read up on him and I researched him, and he doesn't believe in planning at all. He says uncertainty is where things happen. It is where the opportunities for success, for happiness, for really living are waiting. Now, while I don't subscribe to not planning at all, I feel what he's saying. So be very clear. I'm not saying don't plan. I'm not saying make bad decisions, okay? But I am saying that I believe in passion over planning, okay? We live in a world where uncertainty is certain, where the abnormal is normal. Remember this, you can have all the plans in the world, but they will not come to fruition if the universe does not conspire, concede, and agree with those plans. Thank you.